Okay guys, so let's have a look and see what we're going to be making. This tutorial is going to be two parts. So let's have a look at the first video and then I'll show you the second video. This is the first video. So it's a static shot. The camera is not moving. And we've got this man dancing on the roof. And basically we've cropped him out and place text behind him. And now you can see my example's not perfect because the arm does go through some of the text layers and stuff like that. I did rush it a little bit. But on the most part, he has been cropped out of the background, and in between this layer of him and the layer of the background, we have inserted a text layer, dance. And I also downloaded this cool little video that plays out the word love from Envato Elements and slipped it between him and the background. Okay, so that is the first tutorial that we're going to do in After Effects. Let me show you the second tutorial, and this is going to require us to learn how to track the camera, because this is a panning shot. The camera is panning from the left to the right, and you can actually see that love text is, it actually looks like it's part of the scene, okay? And that's going to involve a couple of extra tools and tips and tricks in After Effects to get working. I'll just show you guys that one more time. All right, well, let's get started. We're going to start with the first static shot dance video. So I've got After Effects open. I'm also going to open up my folder and I'm going to look for that static shot dancing video, and I'm basically going to drag it into the top left project area. Okay, let's go full screen. Now I'm in After Effects. I've got my static shot. If I wanted to, I could create a new composition here and tell After Effects how big I want this file to be. Do I want it to be 1080p? Do I want it to be 4K, etc.? But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit cancel on this. Instead of creating a new composition or a new timeline by clicking on this button, what I'll do is I'll actually just drag my footage onto the new composition button that's down here. So I'm just going to drag it and let go when it goes on top of the new comp button. My new composition is created for me and it matches the clip perfectly. Okay, so it's the same frame rate, it's the same resolution, everything. You'll see these little green dots. And what happens is when I stop doing stuff in After Effects, After Effects will load the footage into the RAM of my computer. So when you're playing your files or you're scrubbing through the timeline and you're going back and forth, if you find later on when we're doing some editing that it is pausing and jolting and not playing smoothly like this, it's quite possible that this green bar hasn't loaded properly. And just wait, don't do anything, and you will see that that green bar will load. And once it's completely loaded, then you can scrub through, or you can hit the spacebar on your computer to hit play. There is also a play panel up here. You might have to open it up from the window up here. Media browser. It's one of these. We'll find it in the next part of the video. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to cut this person out of the background. Now to do that, we need to actually open up this clip in its own menu. So right now, I'm in the composition, which is this timeline. Okay, what I need to do is actually open this up and edit this footage that I've dropped into the timeline. So I'm going to double click over here. I'm going to double click on the name of this layer. And right at the top, you're going to see I've got two tabs. The first tab is my composition. It's where all the editing ends up on. It's my timeline. And this tab here is just the layer I've selected. So I've selected this particular layer and I've opened it up in its own tab so that I can do some editing on this layer itself. Okay. So whenever I want to, I can switch between the tabs. Okay, remember that this tab here where it says composition is your actual sequence. So if you've got heaps of different layers and you're scrubbing through, that's the timeline you're seeing here with all your layers. I double clicked on this single layer and I've opened it up here. So it's just showing me this one layer. Okay, later on when we have multiple layers, you'll see that difference more clearly. Okay, so I've opened it up in its own layer. I'm not in the composition, I'm in the layer itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this tool here. It's called the Roto Brush tool. And I'm going to click on this tool. And the Roto Brush is actually a really, really cool tool. Basically, what you want to do is you can actually see the Roto Brush is green at the moment. I want to paint over the person a green color to say to After Effects that I want to keep all of this. And I'll just do it roughly around his other leg. And let's see how good After Effects has done that for us. Let's hit. And now it's done a little outline around him. You can see it hasn't picked up his face properly. So I'll go back over it with the green brush a little bit more. There we go. Perfect. That actually looks good. If I zoom in a little bit more, you'll actually find that it has selected this area here of the sky and it hasn't got a little bit of his shoe here. So I might just get that bit of his shoe. And now to deselect, so there's a little part here in between his legs that I want to remove. On a PC, we hold down the Alt button. On a Mac, we hold down the Option button and you'll see my green dots turn red. So red says I don't want to select that area. So I'm just going to color that area. And now that looks much, much better. Might fix up this area of his legs as well. Now you can see as I try to select his legs, After Effects thinks that I want this area as well. So I'm going to hold down Alt if you're using a Windows computer, Options if you're using a Mac, turn it red, and just say no, I don't want this area. So we're just going to highlight that area. Cool, that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to zoom back out so we can have a look at the timeline. And if I scrub through the timeline, so if I scrub forward, you should start to see that After Effects is tracking this person really, really well. Now I might just scrub all the way back to the start and give After Effects a second because it needs to work on all this. What it's doing right now, it is working out that first frame and it's trying to apply it for all the frames of this whole clip. Now this is going to take some time. It's actually using a lot of computing power right now to actually highlight the character. Okay, so you can actually see some information here. It says Roto Brush is propagating and you can see it's doing 144 frames right there to get this right. So let's just scrub through slowly. And it looks pretty good to me. Now what you're going to find is as you scrub through, you'll notice some mistakes that After Effects has done. Maybe hasn't highlighted the man's hands or feet. Oh, there's a mistake right there actually. So let's zoom into that and I'll just show you what the mistake is. After Effects has not included this part of the jacket, so I'm just going to grab the green tool and just highlight that area. The rest of him looks pretty good. Let's keep scrubbing through. If you don't want to scrub through manually, you could hit the play button by hitting the space bar, and what that will do is it will automatically go through, and it might be slow for some computers. Okay, so give it time. Let After Effects take its time. It is working at a very high rate. Your computer is struggling right now to try to highlight this person. Remember, every second of footage, we're going through over 20 frames, 20 images, and After Effects is trying to identify all of the movements for this person. Now, I'm just going to pause it for a second because I've noticed some errors. What you want to do is, after it's gone through the whole clip, is go back and just highlight some problems and fix them up. So right here, let me just go forward a little bit. You can actually see After Effects has messed up. It's lost the tracking of his foot. Must have been moving too fast. So we're going to grab the green roto brush tool and we're going to highlight that area like so. The rest of him looks pretty good. So let's keep scrubbing through. Let's go back. That looks good. The jacket is all highlighted. Looks nice there. His feet are highlighted. Ooh, can you see there's a problem with this frame? The hands. So the hands, I'm going to grab the green roto brush again and just highlight his arm here. And let's keep scrubbing through and see if there's any other mistakes that we can pick up on. It's looking pretty good. Oh, there's a little mistake there on his leg. Let's zoom into his leg and let's get the green roto brush. Remember, if you want to remove a part, you hold down Alt or Options on your keyboard. It turns it red. And you can highlight the area that After Effects may have selected. It may have selected some of the railings or the sky, so just deselect it. Okay, we're still using the same tool, which is the roto brush here, and we're just alternating between green and red, and we're moving down our timeline. Now, depending on the processing power of your computer, this may be a very quick and easy thing to do. It also may be a quite long, boring task to do, because depending on how fast your computer can process these images and these frames in this video, we'll be able to get to the next part of this tutorial. Okay, so I'm just going to hit play and let's play the rest out. Let's see if we can pick up any more errors. It's looking good so far. I can't notice any mistakes. All right, I'm going to stop it there. I think that's pretty good for now. We'll come back to it in a little bit. So I'm going to hit pause. Now, remember what I said at the very top here? I mentioned that we've got our layer where we're doing our editing in our roto brush, and we've got the actual composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch back over to the composition. So I'm going to click on the composition. And what you'll see in your timeline now is that the guy no longer has the background. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what's going on with my footage? Is there a problem? But just think about what we asked After Effects to do on this layer. We asked After Effects to rotoscope the guy out of the background. So in this layer here, the one that we opened up, we actually got a rotoscope of this guy and we've cut him out of the background. So now in our composition, we can see on this layer, it is just the person and he's dancing without a background. Now, obviously we want to bring the background back in. So just think about it. What would you do to bring the background back in? And where would you place it? Now the answer is quite simple. You're going to go back to the original video that's in your project panel. And you're going to bring it back. And you're going to put it into the timeline. And you're going to put it on the bottom layer. Okay? So now in your composition, you've got two videos. They're identical, but if I just turn the eye off so you guys can see, I'll turn the eye off the bottom layer. The bottom layer is the original video, and the top layer is the video with just the guy in it. Okay, and I'll turn those back on. So what we could do, we could rename these. I can right-click each layer and go rename, and we can call this background original video. And we can maybe name this top layer and we'll call it Dancing Man. Okay, so now we have the dancing man, and he's cut out of the background on that layer, and we have the original background here. Now we're able to actually place anything we want in between him and the background. Now what we're going to do, I've downloaded a video from Envato Elements, but before we use that video, I'm just going to show you how to do a simple text. Okay, so we're going to, well, we can do a couple of things. We can right click anywhere here in the layers area, and we can go to new, and we can go to text layer. So let's click on that. And now I've got my text box open already, and I can just start writing. So what I'm going to do is just go dance, and I'll highlight that text and maybe make it a little bit bigger. Now you can't see it at the moment, and that is more than likely because of the font type and stuff. Let's change this. Let's change the color. Let's make it maybe black. There we go. Just make sure you don't have caps lock on your keyboard when previewing. Sometimes it won't show. So that was my problem. I'm just going to make this text a lot bigger. If you don't see this character panel here on the right side when you are doing text, go up to the window here and you can bring up character, and that will give you these options such as making the font type different or the size. So let's really make this a lot bigger. You can change the font type if you want as well. I'm just going to leave it as is. Now, obviously, we want the text. Let me just grab the selection tool. We want this text to go behind our dancer. And just like in Photoshop, if you want something to go behind, it needs to go underneath that layer. So we're going to slide this T layer, this text layer, underneath the dancing man layer. And now you'll find that text will float behind him. Now I'm going to blow this text up even more. Let's make it really big. Let's put it behind him perfectly like that. Actually, I might change the font color to white. I think that'll look a little bit better. Okay. Now, as you can see, because I've added some new effects, I don't have that green bar. It needs to load. So I'm going to stop doing stuff in After Effects and let that green bar load. Once it's completely loaded or partially loaded, that video footage into your RAM of your computer, you'll be able to preview it without it stuttering. So once you see that green bar reach all the way to the end, what I would get you to do is click on the spacebar on your computer and play it out and see what it looks like. And this is a great way of seeing if there's any mistakes with your rotoscoping. And my one looks pretty good at this point. I'm actually really impressed with it. Now, if your video is doing this, where it's stuttering, it's just because it's still, that green bar hasn't loaded properly. So let it play out all the way till it gets to the end. And what you'll find is the second time you play it, it's going to play very smoothly. So let me just keep going with this. It's almost at the end, 20 seconds. And I'm really happy with how this has turned out. It's actually fantastic. Now, you guys can actually see where we're going with this. In the future, instead of putting a text layer with the word dance in the background, you could add in special effects. You could add in explosions, smoke, destruction, 3D objects, whatever you want, you could place into the scene. Movies and TV shows, have, things flying in the background, dragons, Iron Man, all sorts of stuff. And it's all done in this way using software like this. And here we go. My green bar is completely loaded, so my video is playing perfectly. So remember, every time you add something or change something in your video, that green bar will need to reload before you can play your footage smoothly. That looks pretty good to me. What I'm going to do is just show you one thing. That is, I've got some footage from Envato Elements. So this neon love text. And remember, Envato Elements, before I do anything, Envato Elements will allow you to download stock footage. And that's basically what I did. I went to the stock footage and I searched for dance text, something like that. And you might find some really, really cool things you can put into your After Effects. I also looked at things like motion graphics, and you might find some really, really cool motion effects. For example, this, spaceman guy, we could throw him straight into that After Effects file and have him dancing right next to our guy here, which could be pretty cool. All right, so I've got my neon video. I'm just going to drag this neon video in between my dancing man and the background. And if we play it out, let's have a look. We might have to wait for that to load before we can see it. Yep, it's still propagating. Just give it a second. Okay, so this video, this neon video that I put in, has a black background. Now, what we need to do to get rid of that black background is change the blend mode. Now, to do that, you would see an option here. We don't see that option, so down on the bottom where it says toggle switches and modes for my layers, I'm going to click on that, and you will see a new option come up here. And these options have different, and we're going to learn about all of these eventually, but the one that you might be familiar with from Photoshop is blending options. So on this neon layer, instead of it being normal, I'm going to change this so that the black is blended away. So if we use something like screen, maybe, yep, that does the trick. And now we might also just move this. So if you want to move a particular layer around, you can actually open up that layer and you'll see the transform tool. So I can open up transform and you'll see a few things here. Scale, so I can make the video bigger or smaller. Position, so I can move it left and right. I can also move it down and up. Opacity, rotation, and things like that. And I'll just collapse this back. What I might do is just turn the eye off the dance text that we have there and just have love there. Let's open it back. Let's open the neon text up a little bit more and make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's hit play on this and see what it looks like. So I'll bring it back to the very start and let's hit the play button. You can see my green bar is going to load up in a second. So I'll wait a second so it can load before I hit play. And there it goes loading. I'll hit play now. And there it is. And there I've got a really cool video of the word love. And the guy's dancing in front of it. Looks awesome. Alright guys, that is going to do for our first tutorial. Now, we will have a look at camera tracking in the next video. Before we actually finish up, I need to show you how to export this project so you get a video out of it. Now, to render your videos, it's quite simple. We go up to File, we go to Export, and the one you want is Add to Adobe Media Encoder. Okay, now that is a separate program that you'll need to download and install. It should have downloaded and installed automatically once you got Premiere Pro. So I'm going to click on that, and what it's going to do is load up Media Encoder, and it's going to put this project file in there and ask me to render it out. Now, again, this might take a minute or two for it to show up here. Okay, really, really important. It might take a little time before that project finally shows up here so you can render it out. When you are rendering, please select H.264. That is the best render codec for MP4 files that are compressed and are small, but also retains really good quality. The next option here, if I click on it, will tell you or ask you what size do you want your video. Do you want it 1080p, 4K, 8K? Where are you publishing it? Now, typically, just for practicing purposes, YouTube 1080p Full HD. That is a really good compressed but still high quality version of the footage. The next thing here says output file. So where is the file being saved? So just click on there if you want and save it somewhere where you know you can get to. My output folder is my downloads folder. And once I'm ready to render this out, I'm going to hit the play button. So I'm going to click play. It might take a couple of minutes depending on how fast your computer is and how large your After Effects project is before it finishes and renders out. Once it does finish, you'll see this has completed, and then you can go to the folder where the footage is to play it out. So there it goes. It's rendering frame by frame my footage now, and this might take a couple of minutes. So let's quickly cut back to the finished product. Okay, and here's the finished product.